And happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Business Survival Call sales series for January 2017. Thank you for being with me this lovely January Friday. It's beautiful and sunny here in Dallas, and looks like the low 50s. Very comfortable. Um, I know I'm heading to Minneapolis next week, and so I'm enjoying this while I can. All right, a couple of reminders. You've been on this before, so if you have some questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Do that at any time. I enjoy answering questions, and your live questions are very valuable to me and to everybody on the call, because there's only so much content I can prepare each week, depending on which questions you guys sent in. So, as I always do, I want to start with what is on my mind, and let's find out what that was. There we go. Okay, so apparently growth strategy is on my mind. All right, I'm going to run you through a model. I've probably done this before, but I want to add some things to it. This is the sales call. We talk a lot about growth. We talk about how we get new customers, how we find new business. We want to talk about the difference between, account managers and business development people, and that is included in some of the questions that were sent in this week. So I figure this is a great place to start. You may have heard some of this before, but there's nothing wrong with hearing it a little bit more often. We're going to do a little exercise here to determine what's an appropriate growth strategy for your business or for a particular line of business in your company. And we're going to use information you already have. This is incredibly easy. It's very simple. And once you've been through it, you go, this is very intuitive. And I find it helps answer a lot of questions and gives us some direction very quickly when we're trying to figure out what's the best way to grow a company. And I can't tell you how often I get the question, Tom, what's the best way to grow my company? I say, well, I don't know. Who are your target customers? Okay, and what are your products and services? And if you can answer those two questions for me, and then the follow-up is, what do you want more of? So, okay, you've just described your three types of target customers for me. Do you want more of the same kinds of customers, or is there a new target customer that you feel is going to be important to you? Are you changing your business model, or are you trying to continue the business model you're on? All right. In terms of your products and services, are you adding or creating more products or services, or do you just want to do a better job of leveraging what you have? Again, are you changing your business model? In the current climate, and certainly over the past 5 or 6 years, I've seen a lot of you basically, making a fundamental change to your business model. And I think it's awesome. I think it's important and timely and valuable, and it's going to pay off in the long run. I've seen live event folks adding content creation and event production and video production to their services. They're becoming basically event producers, which is eliminating a middleman and narrowing the channel, making it easier for their customers to buy. I think this is a wonderful trend. It's something I've talked about, back in the early 2000s when I first started writing for trade magazines, doing magazine columns about the importance of content development in the rental and staging market. So I've seen that going on. I've seen systems integrators taking on more design roles, taking on managed services, taking on service contracts and service agreements and service level agreements, getting involved in more creative financing and hardware as a service. These are new products and services. So depending on where you are in your business cycle and the things that you're dealing with, when you ask, how should I grow? Well, it depends. So let's answer the question, what do you want more of? And what are you going to leverage? What products and services? And the tool we use looks like this. It's very simple. 4 quadrants, 2 axes. One axis is the existing products versus new products, and existing customers versus new customers. And the question goes like this. Am I interested in developing new customer segments, or am I more focused on developing existing customer segments? And if you're making a big change in your business, or you're adding a new product line or moving into a new region, your energy is going to focus more on one than the other. And if you're focusing on new business to whatever degree, you put a little dot, you put a mark on your chart that indicates to what degree. Now, right now, I've got a chart set to 1 to 5. I see a little bit of formatting drift there, but and the dot is actually above 5. It's like, wow, we're really focused on new customers. Well, that's great. That's wonderful information. How are we about products? Are we focusing on new products, or are we trying to leverage the existing products? Well, in the example here, we're trying really to leverage existing products, but maybe, there's a little bit of lean towards new products, so we're not quite all the way to the extreme. But what we've created is a cross point that's up in this upper left-hand quadrant. Well, guess what? That's going to tell us something. So do this for your organization and figure out which quadrant you're in. Most of you are going to be in the bottom left, the top left, or the bottom right. Not many of you are going to be in the top right, and we'll understand a little bit more about this. So in your company, for a given line of business, do you want to put more energy into existing or new products and services? Or do you want to put more energy into existing or new customer types? And then where does your business fit on this grid? So our 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, look like this. Figure out which quadrant you're in. Now, let's talk about what the quadrants mean. Okay. Now, if you're in a group, I know a lot of you, sit around the boardroom and eat pizza or whatever and do this and read your email while I'm talking, and that's awesome. If you're having a discussion about this, you're probably debating what does new customers and new products mean. When I say products, I mean products and services. So if I'm a rental company and I want to start doing shows, that's new products and services. If I'm a box sale company and I want to do integration, that's new products and services. If I'm an integration company and I want to do design build, that's a new product and service. And it's where does your energy go? If it's a little bit of energy, we do design build when we're asked, but we're really a contractor, well, that's going to put you way probably back over to the left. If we're interested in new customers, but we're not specifically targeting a segment, we'll just whatever segment comes our way, then you're really kind of focused on existing customers, and you're towards the bottom half of the screen. So the quadrants represent 4 growth strategies. And if you're in quadrant 1, this is the capacity-focused quadrant, and your growth strategy will revolve around maximizing your capacity, making better use of the available capacity, using up more of your resources on a time-based manner. And we see growth strategies for capacity focus pretty much in the box sales and the rentals and the repair world. It's typically a little bit more transactional. This is not a good or a bad thing. It just is. Okay. There's no right growth strategy. There's just the right one for you. So if you're in that world where you're focused primarily on your existing customers and existing products, then what you're trying to do is sell more of the capacity that you have. Some variation on that. So that's what's represented typically in quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, the bottom right, that's what we call the deeper and wider growth strategy. And this is where I have a emphasis on existing clients, but I'm introducing new products and services. So this is very typical if I've been a live event production company for a long time and I want to add content creation or video production or some other sort of service or creative element to my business. If I'm moving into some internal managed services, I will do outside events, but I'll do internal events as well. This is the sort of thing that would put me into the deeper, wider category. And what's typical of this growth strategy is that I'm going to introduce new products and services to an existing clientele and go deeper and wider into my existing clients' organizations. So if I work with a corporate trade show department and I'm working with marketing and going out and doing a trade show, but I also want to do their live event business, want to do their corporate meetings or shareholder meetings, that's a deeper and wider strategy. I'm going to deal with a different contact in that business. Okay. Now, somebody asked a question, and this is a fantastic question: is it possible to be in more quadrant than one, targeting growth in more than one way? Yes and no. Yes, if you have multiple types of business segments, and I'll give you an example. If you're a live event business and you do some dry hire rentals and some regional rental and staging, and you also do some corporate events, you also do some concerts, you do some hotel venue contract work. These are different lines of business. You may even do all of the things and have an integration division and do box sales. Those are other lines of business. And each line of business could have a different growth strategy. If you have, if you feel compelled to say that, yeah, we want more of the same customers and more of the new customers, the question is, how do you go about getting them? So I'll leave it to you to figure out whether a particular line of business can be in more quadrant than one. But I will tell you that your best strategy is a focused growth strategy and not a distractive one. So hopefully that will bear out as I present the rest of it to you. But thank you for asking that question, and then follow up with me if I don't speak all the way, if I don't complete the answer to your question. So deeper and wider is in quadrant 2. I want to get deeper and wider. I want to show more products and services to more contacts within an organization. Now, quadrant 3 is the best fit growth strategy. And that's when I want to find more customers that are exactly what I want. And to speak to the person who asked the question earlier, I could want to go deeper and wider into organizations and be looking for best fit clients that I can go deeper and wider into. However, that would be more of the same type of customer. So don't confuse more with more types. So if I want more types of best fit clients, okay, I want clients that fit the model I'm doing. That's not the same as getting more of the share of an existing clientele. So in quadrant 2, I may work with 3 corporations and I want to go deeper and wider into those organizations, but that doesn't mean I'm not looking for more corporations who I would go deeper and wider into, if that makes sense. So more of the same types of customer is existing customers. Different types of customers that I've never sold to before is new customers. Okay. So quadrant 3 is best fit, and quadrant 4 is enterprise sales. And the reason I said most of you will not fall into this, because enterprise sales means I'm creating products and services for a wide variety of clientele. And the more extreme you are, the more indifferent you are to who the clientele are. In other words, in the top right-hand corner, I would sell anything to anyone. In the bottom left-hand corner, the extreme of quadrant 1 is I have one product and one type of customer. Okay. In the extreme of quadrant 2, okay, I'm delivering as many products as it takes to get as deep and wide into an organization as I can. So very rarely are any of us going to be at an extreme. We're going to be somewhere in the middle of these 4 quadrants, but what we don't want to be is in the dead center. The dead center is a very dangerous place to be, because it means you have no idea what you're trying to do and you can't differentiate yourself in any way. So it's difficult to apply this across an entire company, but I can apply this across a product line. How do I grow that product line? So I've got these 4 wonderful quadrants, and I've got this thing here in the center that I want to avoid. And if I want to be as focused on new and existing customers as I can, and as focused on new and existing products as I can, it means I'm not going to do anything well. In other words, it's not a strategy at all. It's a lack of a decision. I'm bringing this all up because what I want to talk about is, hang on, what types of businesses belong where, and then what's the sales interface that we use for them. So I've added some business types that typically fall into these 4 quadrants. If you're a specialty company, like an LED company, you're typically going to be in a capacity-focused model. Temporary staffing. I used to have a staffing company. Box sales, dry hire rentals. Basically, you live and die by a calendar. And when you run out of capacity, you typically stop selling. That's a capacity-focused organization. If you're an integrator or an event staging company and you're really focused on running out of capacity, then you've got operational issues, and we should have a different conversation. And dry hire rentals, when you're out of stuff to rent, you're pretty much done. Sure, you can outsource a little bit here or there, but you're not going to bring in an entire product line. All right. On Deeper and Wider, we find a lot of folks in the creative services world, event design, design build integration, hotel AV, contract AV for groups. In other words, working with ownership groups that have multiple properties, and I'm going to do a contract to support their entire portfolio of companies. That would be a deeper and wider growth strategy, is to find more companies that are in the hotel AV services group category, as opposed to quadrant 3, the best fit, where the hotel category is boutique. And if I'm in the hotel AV business and I cater to boutique properties, specialty properties, one-off properties, ownership groups that only have a small handful of properties and don't need support for each and every one of them, they want specialized or tailored support for each one. That's a best fit model. And I grow these companies differently. Installation, contracting, integration is best fit. I'm looking for people who are buying what I'm selling. I also kind of like them to fit the calendar and not ask me to do 2 things at once. Event production, we tend to look for best fit. Specialized technology that's adaptive, video support, video production. These tend to be best fit growth strategies. Now, let me take this into the sales model here and show you what that means. Got some unnecessary builds on these slides. If you're on the top half of the screen, your growth strategy is going to involve some form of business development. And right now, okay, there's somebody on this call whose title is business development who is absolutely not in the business of doing business development. You're just a salesperson. And there are people who have the title of account manager who are out looking for new business. They're doing business development. So think about these as processes, not titles. As an industry, we're horrible at giving people correct titles. So when I talk about business development, I'm talking about the process. When I talk about account management, I'm talking about the process. Your titles may actually vary. Why this is important? Okay, account managers are typically what we're going to use to grow a capacity-focused business or a deeper and wider business. And the reason for this is we're dealing with an existing clientele. They want the familiarity of the person who's in place, who's anchored into the organization, and the account manager's job is to be the interface or the interpreter of the seller to the buyer. So they help the buyer understand how to buy from the seller. They help the seller understand how to sell to the buyer. You know, they're that intermediary that allows the transaction to happen. They often negotiate on both sides, which I know drives you operations people nuts when your salesperson is negotiating in favor of the customer instead of in favor of you. But that's what account management actually does. And in capacity focused, it's very reactive. Our marketing is going to drive new clients and prospects to us. Account management needs to pick them up and do something with them. If we're in deeper and wider, we actually have to get the account management out of the office, go out and visit our existing clients and work their way through that business, meet new people, offer new services, do demos, that sort of thing. Business development's job is to go out and find new business and drive it back to the mothership, which could be account management. Okay. In a best fit growth strategy, they're looking for a specific type of customer. Now let's think about this. If your business model says you need a customer that buys a certain thing a certain way, why would we send business development anywhere except looking for people who look like that? And in fact, what I often see people do with business development is just unleash them. They don't give them any direction about who they are looking for, what the ideal customer would be, or where to find them. They just say, go find us some business. The enterprise sale is very, very much a business development model. We're selling magic. We're almost selling voodoo in the enterprise sale. We're going to solve very valuable problems and create products and services to do it. We don't create a product and sell it. We find a problem and then we solve it. And the business development interface is how you take credibility to the field to make sure that the targeted customer understands that you're a viable, credible solution for them. Many growth strategies need both of these, because even if I'm in a best fit model, business development is driving the business they find back to some sort of account management system to act as the interface and the transaction. So, talking about the difference between business development and account management will lead into a couple of the questions that were asked today. Before I move on, if any of you are going to, by any chance, be at ISE in Amsterdam the week after this coming, I am teaching a 3-hour course on selling outcomes. And it's a wonderful workshop. I'm very honored to be asked to present it. But it's a lot of this kind of stuff that you can turn around and apply in your business right away. So we're going to talk about the language, we're going to talk about the process, what you need to do to change your business model to be more successful at selling outcomes. And trust me, outcomes is where the money is. Transactions, not so much, right? All right. If you have any more questions about that, my soapbox, this week's soapbox, feel free to type those questions in and I'd love to get back to them. All right, questions. All right, some wordy questions this week. I've edited them down, but let me read this first question for you about confirmations. Sent a proposal that was valid for 30 days from proposal date. The client is verbally committed to the date, but they've neglected to give them a deposit or sign the agreement, which was hopefully in the proposal. The date for the show is fast approaching, and I also have to order several things to execute the job, so I'm apparently a little nervous about booking subcontractors without a firm confirmation. How should I approach this moving forward? There's some backstory to this, and I emailed back and forth with the person asking the question to get some clarification, and they're fairly confident that the job's going to happen. They're just dealing with a client who's kind of flaky and imprecise when it comes to getting back on information, and they ignore emails and phone calls, and then all of a sudden they're bam, 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 on top of everything. So their focus is somewhere else. Knowing that this is very often the kind of people that we deal with, particularly in the live events world, they're very distracted. They have a lot of things going, and they'll pay attention to you when it's important to them again. When it's important. What we can do is do a better job of making confirmation important to them now. One of the easiest things we can do is in our proposals, outline the next steps. Whether it's in the proposal itself, if it's in the body of the introductory email that goes with it, we want them to confirm the job. That's all they're expecting to do. They're going to confirm it. But if they need to sign something, if they need to respond with a certain set of words, if they need to show up for a meeting, if they need to write you a check or give you a credit card, you have to make it extremely clear. And say, and you have to follow up, because people read these things and they forget. So next steps is very important in any proposal. What are the next steps for the customer? Make it easy for them to fulfill. If the next step is a verified confirmation, a signature, and you're expecting them to take your PDF, print it out, sign it, scan it, and send it back to you. Oh my God, what a pain in the butt. Why don't you use a service such as DocuSign or something else where they can actually give you a positive confirmation from a cell phone? Make it easy. Okay. If you're expecting to be paid, and that's part of the confirmation process, why not send an invoice with the proposal? So I've, in your next step, say, I've attached an invoice for the deposit amount. Note that it needs to be remitted by this date. Here's the link to pay online with a credit card. Make it easy. Okay. These are all normal things today. We're all doing these transactions as consumers, but we need to provide them to our customers. More of our customers want to transact electronically and by credit card. And I know all of your salespeople would rather do all of this electronically and by email and not actually have to talk to anyone. So why not make it more possible for the customer to confirm in a way that benefits everyone? If you've gone through these things and you're not getting the response, then it's always time for that gentle reminder. And the gentle reminder is, hey, Bob, thanks for the verbal confirmation. I've got to get a signature in order for me to go ahead and confirm this in the system and, schedule some people for you and reserve the equipment or whatever it is. Could you just do that for me? And again, make it easy. That DocuSign, there's other cloud-based products out there that will allow you to do secure signatures, but all you really need is a confirmation. So they can do it even by an email saying, hey, I confirm your job for this amount, this job number, and you can use that as a confirmation. Now, you've got to trigger something. So confirmation has to trigger something, some next steps. And an invoice is often a way to do that. I have, in a lot of companies and a lot of companies that I start working with, I find that the deposit invoice process is sales driven instead of accounting driven. And I didn't think about talking about this today, but I want to insert this right now. If your mechanism allows the salesperson to create a deposit invoice and send it without going through accounting, that's dangerous. It's very, very, very dangerous for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is we have to know what money's coming in and what's been, so that we can do some planning. But the biggest issue I have with it is that it doesn't look legitimate. An invoice from a salesman, so, hey, Bob, thanks for the confirmation. Here's your deposit invoice. That sort of thing doesn't go to accounting. That sort of thing sits on the client's desk or desktop and gets ignored. But if your accounting department and your accounts receivable person submits a deposit invoice with clear instructions about how to pay, that's going to be taken seriously. That's going to get forwarded to an accounting department. So that's a much more likely thing to get paid. Okay, hey, yeah, I see the question you have there. I'm going to answer that in just a second because we have a question coming up about that. So, so if there's any more things about confirmations and getting next steps, if you build your proposals correctly, if you explain the next steps to the customers, if you make it easy for them to confirm and transact and pay, then you will have a lot less confusion and you'll be a lot more comfortable with knowing exactly what business you've promised to do. All right. So my buddy here asked a question and said, we're having a hard time defining when a lead gets handed off from business development to account managers at the time of a solid opportunity or the time of a solid relationship. And well, there's not more there. So you didn't quite finish the thought, but I understand where you're going. If it is true business development, at the point in time where we're processing an opportunity, in other words, we've gone from talking about how great it is to do business together to actually talking about a project, an RFP, that's when we need to bring in account managers. And one of the things that will help you is to quit thinking of it as a handoff. It's not business development doing a flyby to an account manager. We're adding an account manager to the conversation. As a matter of fact, we're adding probably more than an account manager. Think about the bow tie effect. So business development starts out with a bow tie effect. It's a one-to-one conversation between the seller and the buyer. And the job, the success of business development is to begin the diamond transformation where we go from a one-to-one conversation to a many-to-many conversation. So business development, as the opportunity progresses and the client says, well, I think we've got a job coming up that you guys might want to get involved with, business development's immediate response should be, I have certain people that I need to get into that conversation. Who do you need to bring to the conversation? And let's get our people together and start talking about it. It is not their job to dig down and try and get the job specs. Now, that may vary from business model to business model, but most of the time, pure business development does not get involved in the transaction. They simply open up the door so that the right people can start talking to each other. So thanks for asking that question. All right. It's January of 2017. Go figure. A lot of folks talking to me about budgets. I've been looking at fiscal and revenue budgets every day, all month. So here's a question about revenue forecasting. How do I create a revenue budget for 2017? I saw a video where you mentioned that repeat annual business needs to be put in at 80% and that yearly contracts need to be at 125%. Yeah, I say a lot of things in video. Let me clarify what the things that the different ways that we might do revenue forecasting. I use 3 basic methodologies, and sometimes I use all 3 and average them. The 3 methods are capacity-based revenue forecasting. The second is historical growth, and the month-to-month situational forecasting. When I first started doing forecasting, we did month-to-month situational. We basically looked at how many jobs how much work did we do in February of last year, and how much of that business is going to repeat. And okay, we'll do the same amount of business this year, and we'd plug that number in. And then we go to the next month, and we look at each month and go, oh, well, Easter's in April this year, so that means April won't be as busy because we lose a week. But that means March is going to be busier because we gain a week. That's situational forecasting. All right, capacity forecasting works when you start by determining a reasonable capacity for your resources. So the amount of work you can reasonably handle in a month. And it's usually I can do this anecdotally. I simply ask or say, hey, you guys did $500,000 of business in March. How busy were you? Oh, that wasn't too bad. Okay. The work was spread out. It was evenly spaced. But hey, you did $500,000 worth of business in May. How'd that work out for you? Oh my God, we were slammed. Well, it turns out all the business was in the same 10-day period. So we look at we figure out through anecdotes what a reasonable capacity for the business is. And if you were reasonably busy the entire month, say you could do $750,000 worth of business with a reasonable amount of stress on the company. All right. Now you look at the historical usage of that capacity by month on a percentage basis. So comparing February 5 years ago to February now, you're actually comparing 2 different capacities. This was very helpful. This methodology was helpful for me in refining my forecasting during the 90s as I was dealing with seasonality. And we knew that January was always a very busy month for us. But how busy would it be? Well, it really depended on what our capacity was, because at some point in time we kind of quit selling. We raised prices so that we didn't take on any more capacity, and every year that capacity increased. So if I'm adding new inventory and I'm adding new people, my capacity is going to increase. And if it's a month where I'm going to sell all of my capacity, well, obviously, my capacity is my revenue number for that month. So we look at the historical, we look at circumstances that change that may have affected the capacity. Did I open an office and move some inventory? Did I lose a person? Is technology changing and I haven't kept up? Or did I buy new technology and that's going to change my demands? Okay. And the last thing that affects capacity is, what am I doing to consciously affect capacity? If I have a growth strategy, say for instance, I'm in quadrant 3, best fit, I've got business development out there, I want them to sell beyond capacity. I want them to oversell because they're finding best fit customers that'll stay with us for a long time. I will outsource to meet demand, and then I will add resources to catch up with my increased demand over time. That's how you grow the business. You continually sell more than you've sold in the past, which means that you have to exceed your capacity. Okay. So that's capacity-based forecasting. Historical growth is you look at your average revenue for the past 5 years for all months, throughout the high and low figures, and now you've got an average amount for that month, and you add a growth factor based on general market conditions, GDP, federal market forecast surveys, or changes in your strategy and tactics. For instance, over the past 3 years, while the GDP in the US has been growing at a very slow rate, between 1% and 2%, the market rate of growth for the live events world has been somewhere between 7 and 10%. So if I were using historical growth, I would take my historical average and add a 7-10% growth factor on it. And for me, that would be the flat revenue number. If the market is growing 7%, I should grow 7% without even trying. So that's flat growth. Okay. If I'm the SI business during this same period, they've been growing at 15%, 10 to 15% has been the market growth rate. So they should be applying that to the historical growth. And you may live in a market where that historical growth doesn't apply. Okay, so you have to take a look at all of these factors and apply the growth or decline percentage that applies to your region and your line of business to each of those months. So on the month-to-month situational, this is great if you have a high volume of recurring business. Those of you that do association work, that's 3-year contracts, a lot of recurring business is much easier to do forecasting because you actually know about next year's event when this year's event is over. So you have stuff on your calendar, and it also means that you can use a little bit of your availability forecasting, your capacity-based forecasting, because you know when you're going to run out of business, particularly if your job starts stacking up. So you post all the known projects, you assign probabilities to them of recurring, and you use the capacity forecasting on the resources that are remaining. And you go month by month and you pick your number. Now, you're never going to be right. Okay, forecast is, you can forecast for years, you get better at it, but you're never actually going to be right. Forecasting is always going to be educated guessing, but you can become more educated and do better. And I tell you, and I tell folks, because I was really good at forecasting, we were pretty darn accurate, and generally within 5% of actuals 4 to 6 months out. And that worked out in basically any kind of market condition. Matter of fact, our forecasting methodology predicted the downturn at the end of 2000. I remember 2000 was a record year for us, biggest year we'd ever had. But our forecasting predicted a fourth quarter downturn, which turned into the recession that started in 2001, which ran up against the 9/11 disaster. And basically we had 18 or 24 months that were just a living hell. But that first whack at recession, we were able to forecast, and no, we had no way to predict 9/11. So there's some answers to the forecasting. What is your baseline? How much are you going to grow or decline, and why? We're going to grow 10%, okay? Why? What are you doing? What are the reasons that you can justify or make me believe that you can achieve 10% growth? I talk about this a lot when I talk about intentional growth, intentional success, is what are the things that you're going to do that are going to assure that 10% growth? Because even if the market is growing 10%, and you should grow 10% just by answering the phone, that doesn't mean you will. There's lots of things that you have to do correctly and be consistent about in order to take advantage of the market growth that's out there. So you have to be able to defend your forecast, and that's key. So get a little debate going, get some discussion going, connect your forecast to the actions that you're going to take, the markets you're going to get into, the growth strategy that you're going to apply, and what are you going to get out of that growth strategy. Some gotchas on forecasting. Oh, there's a lot of gotchas. Big jobs that exceed your norms will tie up resources and limit the amount of work you're going to take on. Sometimes I call these windfall jobs, and sometimes these are jobs that are they're just too big for us. There's a tendency to chase revenue and get excited about, oh my God, we've got $1 million job. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is get $1 million job if you average $500,000 a month, because it's going to max you out. It's going to take away your focus, and it tends to deplete the time leading up to it and the time after it. It cuts into those sales because it's using so much of your energy. So watch out for the big jobs and saying, hey, we got $1 million job, so I'm going to take last year's forecast and add $1 million to it. It doesn't work that way. Demand does not equal growth. So just because there's demand in the marketplace, it doesn't mean that you're going to grow, because operational and sales capacities are also limiters. Resources such as rental inventory, technical capacity, the calendar are one thing. But if your operation isn't designed for $1 million a month run rate, you're not going to get through it. If your sales cannot keep up with demand, in other words, if your sales process is cumbersome, you can't sell more than you have time to write proposals and close. So these are things that can limit you, and these are the kind of gotchas when people make big forecasts, they see huge opportunities, and they find they can't actually meet them. That's probably what happened, is one of their sales or operational capacity constraints bit them. Question just came up. I know this question is somewhat unrelated, but can you talk at all about where to get the information about verticals that we are targeting for growth, specifically how to figure out the segments, channels, and buyers of different verticals? All right. Let me speak to that for a couple moments here. First of all, most people in this business, verticals just don't matter. You are not in the pharmaceutical business. You may have clients that are in pharmaceuticals, but you're not in the pharmaceutical business. The pharmaceutical vertical is not particularly important unless you have very specific skill sets or products and services tailored for a specific vertical. So when I get questions about verticals, I usually need to dig a little deeper and find out what it is we're trying to do for the information, because it's not always relevant. Now, segments, channels, and buyers. Ultimately, all I care about are buyers. I don't care if I have the right kind of buyer. If my buyer is a meeting planner, I don't care what channel they're in, I don't care what segment they're in, and I don't care what vertical they're in. Okay, if my target buyer is a meeting planner or an event planner, okay, then I'm fairly agnostic about what vertical they work in, assuming that I want to grow that kind of business. However, there are times where I do want to have a particular vertical, and I'll use pharma again. If I'm doing medical education, well, medical education is really a vertical unto itself. So you have to pursue the buyers for that. Now, information about the verticals you're targeting for growth, what information do you actually need? If you start from buyers and find out what channel they live in. So an event planner could live in a channel which is independent event planners. They could work for themselves, or they could work for a third-party organization that does event planning. An event planner could be in a channel that's an internal event planner for a corporation. That event planner might be in the segment for the sales department. They might be in the segment for corporate meetings. They might be in the segment for trade show or marketing. Okay? And then they might be in a vertical. They might be in oil and gas. They might be in pharmaceuticals. They might be in accounting. They could be any of these places. So I always start with, what's my ideal buyer? What do they look like? If I want information about them and I want to study a particular channel or type of buyer, actually the best tool I find is LinkedIn. Go search job titles, read bios, look at relationships, and you'll learn a lot. Find out what organizations they belong to. That will tell you what trade organizations, that'll tell you what meetings they go to, what trade shows they go to. This is what you need to know about your potential buyers. Where does that buyer and where does that channel gather to be better at what they do? And that tells me where I can focus some of the energy. So I hope that answered your question, or helped answer your question a little bit. All right. And thank you for asking. All right, back to here. I have a question about account managers in the office. Oh yeah, this is fun. Hey Tom, how much time should an account manager spend in the office? I could. Gee, let's think about what the backstory on this might be. I should feel they should be out at least 50% of the time. My sales staff are very much working through email. They cold call email, then back and forth email. Yeah. Okay. So this is a common challenge. I can't answer the question about how much time an account manager should spend in the office without knowing which growth strategy applies to what you do, and then which marketing strategy you're using to manifest that growth strategy. If you're a quadrant 1 capacity focused company, your account managers are going to spend most of their time in the office. They're going to be processing orders, and they're going to use a lot of e-marketing and phone calls to develop new business. It's just kind of the nature of what they do. If I have business development people, it depends on whether I'm if I'm best fit or enterprise. If I'm in the best fit model, I can do about half of my work remotely. In other words, in an office or from home, or at the beach, wherever it is, business development people on the golf course, wherever it is they go, they can do some work from there. The rest of it has to be directly in front of potential buyers. It's a lot of face-to-face conversation. So this is one of those dangerous how long is a piece of string question, because a lot of times people are asking because they think they know what the answer is and they want to enforce it, and they want me to back them up. So let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. If you're selling by email, understand that in this day and age, you have a lot of clients that will only communicate by email. And while some salespeople will use that as an excuse to not pick up a phone, there is some evidence that a lot of their clients aren't going to return phone calls. Now, is it because the client doesn't like to use the phone, or is it because we're really bad at creating a call to action when we leave a message? Yeah, I think it's probably more of the latter. New business, however, is won with in-person meetings. So while you can do a lot of emailing back and forth, you can even have a phone conversation. Long-held business, particularly best fit business and deeper and wider businesses, and all enterprise business, comes from in-person meetings. If you want to control the situation, I always advise you to get the prospects into your office. Best fit, if you probably need to get them into the office. For 75% of the people you're going to do business with, you will close the deal if you get them in the office. If you're deeper and wider, which means you're already doing business with the organization, getting prospects into your office is a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to do more selling on their turf. But remember, you've already done business with them. So selling by email might just start the conversation. It's an important part of prospecting. If you have account managers that are sitting around sending emails trying to get business, then you need to give them an alternative to this. Bow tie account management is counterproductive. These create bow tie situations which we don't want to have. So we want to create the many-to-many encounters. If we're going to use email, let's use email to invite prospects into our business, give them something of value instead of actually trying to just sell them something. So if we're trying to sell them something, we're not going to get a lot of traction. But if we're trying to give them something of value that will help them in their business and their career, they're much more likely to respond to you. Salespeople are not going to figure this out on their own. We have to develop these tools for them, develop these options for them, and give those to them. Here's another question. Okay, how do you redirect an account manager, my veteran, from sending 50 generic emails out and adding and owning that contact in the CRM? Essentially, they're mass mailing and taking away leads from others, over a strategic approach on 5 leads to more precise and educated, I say smaller net but tighter holes. Okay, so I did some follow-up with the guy who sent this in, and rather than try and rewrite his question, let me tell you what the background is. This account manager, his veteran, happens to be the person who got the title business development. They're not in business development. They're just the account manager who's been there the longest, so they gave him the title of business development or director of business development. So he probably got a title in lieu of a raise. So since they're in charge of business development, they think it's their job to do the outreach, and if they do it by email, then they can claim the contact in the CRM. And when that contact finally comes around again, you know, it's basically it's like the guy that goes around and licks every donut on the tray. I mean, that's what's going on here. All right, so the answer to the question is you need better management. This is not an issue with the account manager or the business development guy. This is poor management. We need to do something about it. But let's talk about the question underlying all of this is that who owns leads? Salespeople don't create leads. Leads come from marketing and prospecting. And if you're using salespeople to create leads, you're using a very expensive tool to do a very simple job. Developing leads is probably the least expensive job you have under your roof. I can hire people to develop leads and basically do basic lead creation for less than what I pay a guy to work in a warehouse. That doesn't mean that there isn't professional lead development out there. I'm just saying this is about volume. So they come from marketing and they come from prospecting. If you take a lead and you turn them into a prospect, that's the role of business development or sales or account manager or account executives, call it what you will. Turning a lead into a prospect is a human endeavor. The company always owns the lead, and if you're the sales manager, you should distribute the lead. If you want the extreme version of this, go watch the movie Glenn Ross. It's a great movie, by the way, but it's a fascinating study in old school sales based on leads. It's well, have a stiff drink before you watch it, but it's a good movie. The company needs to own the lead. So a salesperson going into the database, finding untapped contacts and sending them an email and basically licking the donut is not a good sales management strategy. It's still the company's lead. If an account executive develops one of these prospects, you know, a lead, turns it into a prospect, and then develops the prospect into a transaction, then certainly that would be their account. They've put in all the heavy lifting, okay? And then the final note I want to make about this, because the veteran in this case was the business development guy, business development doesn't manage accounts. Business development doesn't actually write business. And if they do, then the business development is not the right title. It's not a description of their function. They're simply an account executive or an account manager. So don't tell me you've got, we spent a lot of money on business development when really all you do is have account managers with a business development in their title. Business development is a process. And effective business development doesn't manage accounts. They drive high quality prospects back to a sales team back to the organization in order to convert. Okay. Yeah, it's a process, not a job. So here's, oh, hey, I put a graphic in. Lucky you. So there's a sea of potential buyers out there. Lots and lots of folks that you could do business with. There's, matter of fact, there's so many, it's overwhelming. Okay. And you put your marketing out there and your competitors put marketing out there. There's all this marketing out there that's going to capture some of these potential buyers, filter them through, and maybe turn them into prospects for you. Okay. Some of those prospects are going to go into a funnel and maybe sign up for a newsletter or do something else, you know, drop their card in a fishbowl, and they're now waiting to be found. And that's what that veteran was doing. He was going into the waiting to be found prospects and claiming them without actually doing any real work. Other prospects will actually seek you out. They will actively engage to you and say, hey, I want to do some business with you. Okay. The prospects that seek you should go straight into the account management system. I don't need business development at this point. Marketing has already done the lead generation and turned them into a prospect. They engage themselves. We take them straight into account management and start converting from a bow tie to a diamond as quickly as possible. The ones that are waiting to be found are places that business development can go mine and develop. And in either case, we're going to convert these. If it's business development, I'm going to bring them back to account management. We'll convert them together, and then account management will take over and complete the transaction. If they come through the marketing system straight to account management, they'll complete the conversion process with the support of the team and develop the transaction. That's how it works. So look at what if you need business development, and if you're in quadrant 3 or 4, you do. Okay, look at the process for handling leads and prospects. All right. We're about out of time here. Hey, I should have thrown an extra question into the last call. That would have been really smart. Quick, I'll try and handle this real quickly. Is it better to send a branded newsletter or make it look like a regular email? And the follow-up is, should the content be in the body of the email, or should it always link to a website? These are philosophical questions about e-marketing. Let me give you my opinion. I use branded emails for all my opt-in e-marketing. People can opt out and they can still love you. People can opt out and still do business with you. It's simply not everybody wants the e-marketing. It doesn't work for everyone. I use personal emails or unbranded emails for one-to-one correspondence. Sometimes we can use an unbranded opt-in, but the correspondence has to come from an individual, typically an identifiable person in your company. In other words, the owner of the company can send out an unbranded opt-in email that will look like a regular email, but it's basically a mass email using your email marketing server. Okay? I don't like to send out unbranded opt-in emails from the company or from marketing or from sales, because if the customer, very often people will read them and think it's a personal email, find out that it's not, feel betrayed, feel cheated, feel annoyed, and unsubscribe. So sparingly use unbranded opt-in emails, and only from message from an actual individual. Okay. The read more concept on newsletters. When I first started doing my newsletters 10 years ago, I refused to do any read more. I wanted the content of my newsletter to be in it. AV Matters newsletter, everything is pretty much in that email, until the past couple of years when I started adding additional content. But the core content is all there. The best practices is all there, because I want people to be able to read it on their phone. I want them to be able to read it in one sitting and not have to link to something else. It's less of a problem these days with technology, but still, it's more generous, in my opinion, to give people something that they can complete right now in the email, rather than have to link back to your website. But linking back to your website is still valuable, important for you, so give them a choice, give them a little bit of both, okay? If you have to deliver immediate value in your electronic communications, or you're going to risk losing your audience. So Hey, we're really out of time for questions. Thank you for the live questions. If your organization needs one-on-one coaching, or you as a leader need one-on-one coaching about any of the things that we've talked about, talk to me about the advisor program. I've got a number of ways that we can work together, much more cost effective than some of the other types of work that I've done in the past. It's worth having a conversation about, and I hope you'll do that. And yes, you check your calendar event to get your link to the archive. It'll be up here in the next hour or two, because the process works really, really fast now. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on the call next month. Cheers.